Can I start? Okay, so I'd like to present a summary of the article I've been reading, which is titled Children's and Families' Use of Computers in Australian Homes, and it's written by Tony Downes from the University of Western Sydney. It was published in Contemporary Issues in Early Childhood in the year 2002. Now, the purpose of her article is to find out how children use computers at home in Australia and to make suggestions to teachers about how this information can help them use computers with the children in their classrooms effectively. Now, the article is divided into four main parts. There is an introduction. Secondly, she gives her research method. Thirdly, the results of the study are discussed. And finally, the implications for teachers are discussed. Let's take a look at the background information, which comes from the introduction. In this section, Downes explains that computer use is growing in Australian family homes. Of course, this was in 2002, so computers were not as common as they are now. So more families were starting to have computers in their houses. Children were starting to use computers more and playing outside less, so some people were becoming worried about this phenomenon. A lot of parents were starting to work from home, so there was more computer equipment at home, and children were becoming more exposed to computers because of this. She also mentions in the introduction that teachers need to know how children use computers at home because this can help them with their teaching in the classroom using computers. In the second section, Downes explains the research method. In fact, this was not a new study. It was simply bringing together three previous studies on the same issue, and basically in each of these studies, students from primary schools, different primary schools around Australia, and in one case also a high school, were studied, and the method in all cases involved discussion groups and interviews with the students and the teachers and the parents in these schools about how the computers are being used at home and in the classroom, and then Downes, or the researchers in each case, analyse these discussions to come up with patterns that they found in the responses of the students and the teachers and parents. Okay, now the results section is divided into three main parts. The first part is related to family computer resources. The second part of the results is related to socio-cultural factors, and the third section is about patterns of use of computers. So let's look at the first part of the results section, which is the family computer resources. In this section, the studies found that many families have computers at home, and children are becoming exposed to computers and other computer equipment, printers and discs and things like that, at an early age. The children who are exposed to the computers younger, so under 5 years of age, become quickly more comfortable and more confident with the computers. There's also a socio-economic element to the computer resources findings. The wealthier families tend to have more software and hardware available. Some wealthier families might have 2 or more computers, and as a result, because there is more equipment in the home, these machines can be used for not only toy, so playing purposes, but also tool purposes. She makes this distinction between the toy and the tool element of computing. So they use it for both work or education and entertainment, whereas less affluent families often only have one machine. Maybe they don't have internet access, so it's largely used for entertainment purposes in the poorer families. The reason that the computers were bought is often for parents' job and also for children's education purposes. She also gives details about some of the types of hardware and software that the families have, and in general, children are watching older members of the family to learn how to use the equipment. Okay, now the second section of the results is quite a long section, and it's divided into 3 main areas. This is the socio-cultural factors, as it's divided into the context, the family practices and discourses or opinions of the family members. In terms of the first part of the socio-cultural factors, which is the context, the main information discussed here is about the computer largely being located in the family room, in a common area in the household. The children are observing and learning from older members of the family, and very much the computer use is a family activity, and there's a lot of social interaction happening over the computer use. So this is a beneficial aspect of the computer use, the social interaction that the children are getting from this. Okay, the second aspect of the socio-cultural findings is related to family practices, and this is divided into 2 main parts: the family rules and gender factors. In terms of rules, there are rules related to 3 main areas, 3 categories. One is about sharing and priority, and the main rule here is that generally older people have priority over the younger people in the computer use. If the father or the older brother needs it, then usually the younger kids are kicked off the computer. There are also rules related to limits of time and purpose. For example, children maybe can't use the computer until after they've finished their homework. The most common rule was that there were limits on how long children can use the computers. Most families had these rules. The third category of rules was related to caring for the computer. So things like you can't eat food or drink near the computer is an example of these kind of rules. Okay, now the second aspect of family practices in terms of the socio-cultural results was related to gender, and some of the findings here were that males tended to use the computer more than the females. The fathers were often the main users of the computer in the house. Boys and girls had some slightly different uses. Both of them were regular users of the computers. Boys tended to show more interest in the operating systems and the technical sides of the computers. The girls showed more interest in the functions and what they can do with it. Boys tended to play more games, and the girls were more likely to do non-game playing activities such as word processing or illustrating, making pictures or decorating texts using the computers. On the whole, the gender differences were not found to be significant in these studies. Okay, so I'm going to finish there. That's just half the results because this is my practice summary. So thanks for listening, and do you have any questions about that part of the article?